Hi, everyone. I'm Molly Quick. I'm the Dean of the College of Education, and I'm just quite excited to be here and get to introduce our chapel speaker this morning. Dina Moate, I'll just say her name, like I never know when to say the magic name. Dina's name is magic. Dina was chosen by the COE faculty because she is a natural problem solver, because she's a servant, she has a willing heart, and she's adaptive. And now is the moment when we need adaptive people, right? Like if any time, now is the time we need you, Dina. A little context before we get started, because I think this is her story will come to your hearts, come near to your hearts. In the COE, we have majors just like you expect for K-12 classrooms to head into Washington State certification. But we also have another set of majors and minors that lead to education in non-traditional settings. And Dina's story, she's going to tell you kind of how she chose what she chose, but you're going to see that picture of her adaptive heart, and you're also going to see a picture of what I love most about teaching and learning, which is the aspect of redemption, right? What I love about teaching and learning is that every day we get a chance to start again. And where I as a teacher or I as a student may have messed it up the day before, today I get to start again, and I get to start anew. And Dina's story brings that out, embodies that position more than anybody I know. And so I'm really excited for you to get to hear her story, and she'll talk a lot about what it means to embrace the rain. Please welcome her.
Thank you, Dr. Quick. So as Dr. Quick said, my name is Dina Moate, and there is nothing magic about my name, but a little fun fact about me is that my original name is actually Kostadina Pavlopoulou, and if somebody can spell that out, I will give you maybe $5 at Starbucks. So good morning, everyone. It's been a pleasure to be here. I'm very honored that I was chosen by the College of Education. And as Dr. Quick said, my theme for the day is Embrace the Rain, and we have a picture up showing. And I will talk a little more about this picture a little later, but I'll give you a spiel on what I'll be talking today. And so I'll be talking about where I come from. I'll talk about how I fell in love with ministry, how God led me to become a teacher, and how I came to Northwest, and finally what I'm planning to do next in life, and what is my vision and what is God's vision for my life. So to start us off, I wouldn't be representing the College of Education correctly if I didn't have any objectives. So I have 2 objectives for you today, and you can put yourself in the position of I. And so today I will be able to, number 1, identify one thing that God has been doing in my life, and number 2 is I will be able to witness one thing that God has been doing in the lives of other people around me. So I was born and raised in the region of Thessaloniki, Greece. You guys probably know the city from the letters that Paul wrote to the Thessalonians, the 2 letters. And it's debatably the second most beautiful city in the world. First is probably Kirkland. But Thessaloniki has everything. It has the water, it has a castle, an old, ancient, beautiful castle, and it has mountains nearby you can see, and it's just a wonderful place. I grew up in you can show the picture of Thessaloniki, and then so you guys can see up on the screen that it's in the northern part of Greece, and yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about that as well. And I also grew up to be a Greek Orthodox at the Greek Orthodox Church. And so I knew a lot about the traditions growing up. I knew a lot about Christ, but I never defined myself as a Christian necessarily. I never had a relationship with Christ until I was about 90 years old. And that's when I started falling in love with ministry. When I was 19, I went back to the city in Thessaloniki, and that's when I started actually, my passion was to become a physical therapist. And that was my childhood passion. I started pursuing it, but God brought in my way a group of wonderful people who were really passionate about who they were and who they were in Christ. And they were so passionate that came all the way from the US to Greece to preach the gospel. So I met this group of missionaries that were doing Bible studies and were leading the church, Zoe Church in Thessaloniki, Greece. And it was a wonderful time. I started falling in love with ministry because I saw the relationship they had with Christ. And I realized for the first time that there is so much goodness in the world. And it's not by accident. It's only when we partner with God that there can be so much goodness. And so I started falling in love with ministry. I started being part of a number of things they were doing. But maybe the most significant thing that I was part of was the opportunity we had to be present during the refugee crisis that took place in Greece. So you guys might not be aware of the refugee crisis, or you might have heard a little bit about it. It was back in 2015. So I have a few pictures to show you here. And if we can go to the map. So the refugee crisis started happening because of the conflict that is happening in Middle East. So a lot of people what started doing was walking towards from Middle East to Turkey and getting on boats, coming into Greece through water, landing into, eventually from one island to another, landing into Athens, and then from there taking buses and trying to make their way all the way to north of Europe. End goal for many people were Germany and Austria, and it began being 5,000 people per year, I think, and then it started becoming hundreds of thousands of people per year. So as you can imagine, there was a lot of people that were coming through the borders, and I have a few more pictures coming up. And the more pictures, the more people were coming up through the borders, the more heavy the burden became for Europe on how to resettle those people, right? So they started shutting down the borders one by one, and those people started getting stuck into Greece now, where it was never the place they wanted to land. It was just they're passing through, but they were stuck. And what ended up happening was that UNHCR came, they started making camps, they started settling, and a lot of people were now in a place with not knowing the language, not knowing what's coming up next. You can show up a few other pictures as I'm talking about this. And so we had an opportunity to go into the camps and just give away any, it was, when I say we, I mean the church, but also a lot other volunteers that were able to give away clothing, things they would need for their journey, and different organizations would come up to just provide and equip them as they were there. One of the organizations that were present as well was A21, an anti-human trafficking organization as well. And they were educating people on issues of human trafficking where they were at, and just letting them know how they can proceed without being in danger as much as possible. So it was during that time in one of these refugee camps that actually God sparked this passion in me to become a teacher. There was this, I remember there was this group of people who were teachers and came into the camp, and they had this platform to just play with the kids, share materials, and have a voice in them, give them hope, give them education, teach them English and Greek, and just show them love and see their lives being transformed exactly where they were at, although they were stuck and although they had no hope and they didn't know what tomorrow would look like, when they would be in a different country, when they could say, we're free again. And so that's a little bit about how God's starting this passion in me. And now I'm stepping into the next chapter of my life, which I actually have a quote that is by Christine Kane and says, God does not call the qualified, he qualifies the called. And I chose this quote. I didn't choose this quote, it kind of chose me because at that time it really inspired me as God has started calling me into this new passion of mine. And it was one thing to to spark a passion in you, and it was another thing for God to make a way for that passion to become reality, right? So first thing that God called me to was to go to CTS, which stands for Continental Theological Seminary, and that was in Brussels. And that year, I gave a year of just deepening my theology with the Lord and just learning from different missionaries who were there and teaching people about their lives in ministry and how we can deepen our relationship with Jesus. And that year it was also when I was dating my now husband. We got engaged, got married, and he was a missionary at the time in Thailand. And so I joined him for a few months, and then God led us back to the US. And it was on that plane ride to the US that we actually had no plan. We had no specific job that we were going to, nothing. We were just coming back. He was fundraising. I was applying for my citizenship, and that was the only end goal. But God spoke to him and said 3 things: settle down and get a house, settle in one church, and register Dina to Northwest University. And soon after that, he also actually transferred from Sagu. He was doing online to Northwest University, and we will be graduating. He already graduated in December with his master's, and we'll be graduating together this spring as well. And so that's how God has brought me to Northwest, and I want to emphasize how God, again, gave me the passion. It started with just me seeking Him and saying, God, what is next? And He sparked this passion in me. I never imagined I would be a teacher. I always wanted to be a physical therapist. I kind of dropped that out to be in His ministry, and then God called me into this. Then after He sparked the passion, He gave me, He started opening my worldview. One experience at a time, so many people came into my life that were not Greek, were not Greek Orthodox, were not, they had so many different backgrounds. So my worldview started opening up. I started embracing diversity, and I was able to just see the world through the eyes of other people. And the last thing that happened was he started giving me the skills. Now we had the passion, we had the worldview opening up, and now it was time to build up the skills. And that's where Northwest came into place. When I came here, I realized how much more diverse this place is, how much more diversity is celebrated and not frowned upon or oppressed. Diversity is welcome in the kingdom of God, and Northwest just embodies that so, so well. And so let me go to this next one. So I fell in love with ministry, and specifically with refugees and immigrants, and God had that in my path as becoming a teacher. But coming here, I'm obviously not in the middle of the refugee crisis anymore. But that doesn't mean that we don't have the issue going on globally and anywhere we are at anymore. So I have a few numbers over there. It says that 80 million, based on UNHCR, 80 million people are actually forcibly displaced worldwide as we speak, like that happens every year. 30 million of these people are children, and 28 million are refugees. So we see that the problem is global. The problem is in our backyard. We just have to have an eye for it. And I believe that as Christians, we need to always be open to just see where our brothers and sisters are hurting and have an eye open for their struggles, where they're at. And I want to talk about a woman I met while I was here. That was last year in the beginning, right before COVID hit. I was at church, at Bellevue Neighborhood Church, and it's called Bellevue Neighborhood Church, and I love that because literally a neighbor walked in, and her name is Farzani. She's a wonderful woman who I saw her the first time. She was sitting next to one of our elderly ladies, so I didn't pay much attention. I thought she was a friend. The second time she came, the third time she came, I realized that after the church was over, she didn't really interact with what I thought was her friend. And so I went to her and I started speaking to her. I said, hi, my name is Dina, I introduced myself. And I realized that she didn't speak any English. She was like, hi, Farzani. And she just had this joy I could tell it was the joy of the Lord in her face. But her English was really, really poor. So I started trying to communicate with her. I pull out my phone, I click on Google Translate, and so we start communicating. And Farzana ends up telling me that she is from Iran. She became a Christian very recently, about 3 years ago. She had many issues being Christian in Iran. She started being prosecuted. She eventually found an Iranian man who was a Christian here in the US, and she came here with a fiancé visa. And her daughter is now a Christian. Her daughter is maybe I shouldn't share more, but her daughter is also a Christian, and this year what I've learned about Farzani is that although she has been in a country now that it's way more safe for her faith, it's still a challenge for her. It's still a challenge to have a good job. It's still a challenge for her to go back and just learn basics or finish school, because she's at that age that learning doesn't come natural anymore. But she still needs community. And when we don't know the language, when we can't bridge those gaps, it's really hard to just build community around us and to keep relationships going. And one thing that actually sparked my interest while I was here at Northwest was the initiative, which I like to call now Bridge the Gap, but it's a project that we have started that focuses on people like Farzani, and it has not been finished at all. I'll just do it for my classes right now. But it focuses specifically on teaching English as a second language to people who are immigrants or refugees, and having the Bible as the curriculum. And I love this idea because the Bible is one of the most bestsellers around the world, and it has I think it's #1 in translations worldwide. Therefore, wherever you're from, you can come here and get a copy of the Bible in your language, and we can have a lesson. So that's just a thought that started while I was here at Northwest, and how God has been inspiring me. But a few other things, if we could go to the next slide, are a few organizations that I came across while I was here. One is Jubilee Reach, and that's an organization in Bellevue, where it just focuses on people who are either low income or immigrants who want to learn the language. And I started volunteering with them last year, and I wanted to do some ESL teaching, but with COVID, they shut down the program. But this is what I will be working on soon after things go back to normal, hopefully. And another opportunity I've had during my Northwest here, my time here at Northwest, was meeting paper airplanes. And I heard about paper airplanes through my advisor, Dr. Kobashigawa. She's not here today. And she told me about this organization who they empower refugees online, exactly where they're at. So we talk with people who are in Middle East, who are in conflict right now, in the place where they're at, and we give lessons for English or technology or entrepreneurship. They have different programs that they're building up. And I'm really excited about the time I have been having at Paper Airplanes so far, and this is something that I'm definitely going to continue doing. And finally, I am applying to come back to Northwest after my graduation for the Master's in Teaching, and I want to be an elementary student here so I can invest more in the community that I will be at. And as I am closing, I would like to say that, I would like to recap all that, and I want to say that it was because of Jesus that my passion for teaching began in the first place. But it was because of Jesus that it all took place to begin with. I couldn't have done it without his vision and without his direction in life, and him coming before me and every step of the way providing for me to be here, to have a job, to have an education, and to complete my degree here at Northwest. And it's because of Northwest and God placing me here that I have been able to get the skills I need to become a holistic educator, to learn about how to have confidence in the classroom and how to gain experiences here that is still a safe environment before I go out in the world. And I would like to thank Northwest because it has been a great opportunity to combine a professional life with a Christian life and do that well. Northwest models that all throughout their faculty staff, the teachers, as people pray for you and have community with you, and as we come to chapel and we have this holistic life that we do community together, and we don't this is a hard word for me, compartmentalize, maybe, what is faith, what is profession. We don't separate those things. They're all together, and that's what makes us whole. So as I'm closing up, I would like us to go back to the theme I had for today, Bracing the Rain, and which is all about embracing the season we're in. And I want you to take a second and think about those people as they are about to jump in the water. I want you to take a second and think what they might be thinking in that moment. Do you think they're excited? Do you think they are maybe embarrassed? Do you think they're sad? I don't think they're sad, but... and most importantly, do you think they're prepared, like, with the clothes they're wearing? Do you think they were prepared this morning to jump into that lake? Well, I actually know these people, and if we could show this next slide, they were all people at my wedding. And we got married on a really hot day on July 6th here in Washington. And it started amazing, but then when it was time to party, the rain came on us. And it was that moment that we had to make a decision. Will we go under the tents and just eat the cake and go? Or will we continue the party? And Brian and I started our first dance under the rain. And then soon enough, his cousin on the left, she ran on the water and kept the party going. So all these people started embracing the rain, and we had a wonderful, amazing day. But it wouldn't have happened if we had stopped ourselves and if we said, you know, we just cannot handle it. It wasn't ideal, or it wasn't what we were supposed to be doing here now. So we cannot always wait for the right circumstances, but we have to obey God in the season He has us in. And as we close, again, I have a challenge for us. I have a challenge for us to respond on what God has been bracing you to do in this season. With all the difficulties we have been having and with all the unideal situations, I know for a fact that God is working through all things. And I'm asking you to share with everybody here at Northwest. I'm inviting you, if we can show the QR code next, I'm inviting you to scan this, and if you're feeling comfortable, to share one thing that God has been embracing you to do in this next season. And this is anonymous, it is optional, but what I'm planning to do with this is just to print it and post it at the College of Education on the hallway, and just show people what is God doing through all of us, not just me personally. I have a platform to speak today, but I hardly ever get to hear your voices. So I think this is our chance to share as community what God has been doing. Thank you.